I can't believe it's been over 10 years since I graduated from high school. Time has just flown by like that. And I'm glad that I'm making this video now, because if I were to have made this video 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't be saying the same things to you as somebody who's doing your ATAR right now. There's just some things that you only learn with time, and you might know that I actually posted a video where I talked about the best things that I learned from seeing a psychologist for over a year. And as a result of a lot of the things that I learned there, I can now reflect back on when I was 18 and say, what were the things that I truly feel like I could have done differently? These aren't just, looking at study tactics or, how to be consistent with studying, which I did a video on, or like how I could have better managed my time. I think a lot of this comes down to my identity, how I treat myself, the type of person I was at that time, and it's how I am even today. But there are some things that I'm trying to change about myself even now that I'm working on. So I'd love to share with you some of these things that I've picked up and hopefully give you some insight into potentially some of the things you might be saying to yourself, or some of the things that you do that you don't really recognize because obviously it's yourself. It's hardest to reflect upon your own self because it's just so subjective. Hey, in case you don't know me, I'm Lisa, and on this channel we usually talk about studies, as I am today, but I also do adulting 101s, talking about careers, talking about financial decisions like purchasing property, making an income for yourself, and more. So if you like what you hear, then consider subscribing. The first thing that I realized now looking back at when I was 18, 17, was that I was really hard on myself. I talked a little bit about this in a previous video, but when I walked into my ATAR when I was in year 11, I thought to myself, if I can just get 90 ATAR, I'm going to be so thrilled with myself. And as I slowly invested more time in my studies and built up the momentum and gradually increased my grades, my goals kept shifting with that. So I would go from 90 ATAR to a 95 ATAR, and then eventually I wanted a 98 ATAR. And while having these shifting goals can be a really great thing because it means that you're progressing forward, I think it also has that double-edged sword in that you're always pushing for more and that you're always needing more in order to satisfy yourself. This was all pressure that I had built into my own mind. I didn't have parents who were, pruning in on me and watching over my shoulder and telling me that you have to get 99 or you have to get into med or something along those lines. It was all internal and built from within, not even from friends. It was just me. And I haven't admitted this on the channel too often, but in the car ride to school, I would be studying. I would study at recess, at lunchtime, and then at nighttime when I went home, I had a little bit of a break, which was essentially just having a shower, having dinner, and then I'd just be full studies again from let's say 7 all the way through to 10, 11, if not even later, if I had an assessment happening. And just looking back at this, a lot of people often ask me, how did you study? What did you do to get a 97 plus ATAR? And I always respond with, I don't think you should do it the way that I did it. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't productive. Yeah, I got great marks, but at what cost? I had to cut out my friends. I cut out even seeing friends at lunchtime. What the heck, Lisa? I cut out chatting with my parents, hanging out with my parents, which is something that, I'm pretty sad about actually. And so while yes, the ATAR is important, it does help you get into university, just remember that there needs to be a sort of balance of how much are you going to put upon yourself to do well versus just being content with where you're going and your progress so far. Back then, we didn't talk about mindfulness. People didn't used to do yoga and meditation and all these things which help you to catch yourself and see what you're thinking for what it really is, the internal monologue that's going on in your brain, and sometimes how harsh you can be to yourself. So if you're somebody who, let's say, is aiming for that A or even an A+, but you end up getting an A and you're bashing yourself over it, really, how productive is that to you? And how beneficial is that to your well-being? It isn't. On a completely unrelated note, my hands are peeling, and I think it's because we've been using hand sanitizer so often now. So I keep staring at them and getting distracted, which is not mindful in itself, but it is what it is. So a great way you could address this internal monologue is to constantly reflect on how you're going. This is what I do now in my own work. At the end of each week, I'll reflect back on the work that I've done, what my goals were, how I progressed in it, what I did well, what I didn't do well, and then set up new goals for the following week. And I think that period of self-reflection that happens quite regularly can actually help you check in with yourself periodically, as opposed to just having this tunnel vision and just going this rabbit hole where you're just getting further and further along, and you're not really seeing where you're going. You're not considering anything else. It's just that one thing that you're chasing. And to think about the sacrifices you're making, the potential inner monologue you're saying to yourself, it's just potentially not worth it at the end of the day. The next thing I want to say to anybody who's doing their year 11 or year 12 or any other equivalent, IB even, is that, yeah, like, this is about a certificate that you're trying to get at the end of the year, and you're working really hard towards this number and these scores and these study scores. But I think often it's too easy to lose track and lose that holistic picture of the fact that you're actually just learning, and to enjoy the process of learning itself. And what I mean by this is, yeah, duh, like you're studying, so you're learning content, biology content, chemistry content, English text content. But what I mean is you actually can have a look at it from a different angle where you get to learn more than just the studies. So for example, you get to learn about how to study, how to be productive, what works for you, what types of study techniques match you best. And then beyond that, you get to learn more about yourself as well. So you get to learn what type of learner you are. Are you a visual learner, auditory learner? Are you a combination of all of them? Are you somebody who enjoys waking up in the morning to study? Are you somebody who is a bit of a night owl and you prefer working until late hours of night? There's actually so much that you actually get to learn about yourself, which makes this entire process so much more meaningful than just working towards this 4-digit number at the end of the year and just seeing the content as content you need to like rote learn or memorize. It's about making things more meaningful for you, and then that way the 2 years that you're spending trying to get this certificate becomes just that much more exciting and fun. Now let's talk about working with friends. When I was in year 12, I had this incredibly competitive spirit. Actually, I still am pretty competitive these days, but I saw the people in my class, I saw my friends as competition rather than as allies. And looking back, I think it's just because no one had really ever taught me otherwise. And I realize now that to have people on your side, to have people that you also lift up, means that you collectively lift each other up. And even if you believe that you could have done just as well on your own, I think the added benefit here and the more meaningful benefit is that you're building deeper connections with your friends. You're developing new friendships with other people in your classroom. And these are friendships that could carry you through the rest of your life. And the other thing is that helping people is something that I feel like a lot of us innately cherish and innately enjoy. A lot of us find it really rewarding to help somebody else and to see them, click when it comes to a certain question that they're trying to answer. And you've come along and you've been able to support them through it. And as you might know, teaching people what you know is actually a study technique that we discussed in one of my other videos. And it's an incredibly efficient way to tell you where your strengths and weaknesses are. And the other added bonus is that you're changing up your study technique and your study habits. So rather than just sitting at home and doing everything yourself, you're getting out there, or maybe you're jumping online, depends if we're in lockdown or not. As I'm filming this, we're currently in lockdown. But yeah, it gives you a chance to vary things up. It'll keep things spicy for you. And I'll tell you, I like things spicy. All these points I feel have that added meaning of, rather than just looking at your ATAR in solitude and looking at, what you need to study, which is what everyone talks about. And heck, my channel has been for the longest time very much like detailed in the actual study specifics. But I think we're at a point now where we need to look at it from a more holistic, bigger picture point of view. What is it going to do for you as a person? How's it going to help you grow? How's it going to be meaningful to you apart from just the studies itself? I think in that sense, if we have this discussion more, all of us will have a healthier relationship when it comes to the ATAR. If you like this video, then please thumbs up and leave a comment for me down below. this was non-scripted. I just sort of wanted to put myself out there, and I hope that this really resonates with a lot of you. If you wanted to watch my video on the things I've learned after seeing my psychologist for a year, then feel free to do that, and I'll chat to you guys soon. Bye!